Good day and welcome to Rocket with Chief. My name is Daniel Robus. I'm your host, and today is an episode which is close to my heart. It's got a lot to do with education and education of learners. Being a father of two girls, this is really, I'm in the thick of things, and education has changed over the years, but fundamentally it's the same. We want our children to enter the world with the right tools, the right emotional foundation, and the right mindset to be positive humans solving problems that we have made. On my route to school, I passed 3 or 4 schools on the way. Do we need more? And then I read a News 24 article about a fantastic idea, a school with the biggest gaming arena in Africa. It piqued my interest. So we chased Shaun down and wanted to chat. If you don't know Shaun Fuchs, you're about to meet someone who is an entrepreneur, a leader, an author, a risk taker with a strategic thinker thrown in. I think, Shaun, you are blessed more than most. But at your heart, you're a teacher. And if I'm not mistaken, history. Shaun, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, in your lofty position as the top of all these empires, do you actually still go into a classroom? Do you still teach learners at all?
Absolutely. I think as a teacher, you never stop teaching is the one comment. And history is right. It's probably the best subject that one could have in any learning environment. I'm completely biased, obviously. But yes, I still teach. You know, in terms of when we opened Centennial schools, I suppose we disrupted quite a number of things in terms of education, and a lot of it was in here. And in order to demonstrate what needed to be done, I needed to make sure that I was teaching. So I taught our middle school grades 7, 8, and 9, and absolutely loved it. I hadn't been in the classroom for about 12 years because I'd obviously, as you know, moved into the corporate space of education. And it was completely natural. It's been the 6 most enjoyable months I've had in years, and have absolutely loved it. And the students have loved it. And you know that. I mean, so yes, still teaching at the moment. That's not going to last forever, but we'll still try and keep as much of that contact as possible.
Brilliant. That's so nice. Now, you make mention on the Centennial website that we are less teaching, more facilitating. What does that mean before parents get in a panic?
So your teachers, the traditional role of a teacher, let me go back a bit. Schools that we literally have. So let me start here. So we went through a pandemic of 2 years, and we are going to go through more down the line. So that we know, and our scientists will tell us that. So the world will continue to evolve and change. We go through a pandemic, most things change completely, from lockdowns to businesses, how businesses function, from remote working to hybrid models to all sorts of things. Yet our schooling system stays 100% the same almost. So after 2 years of some remote teaching, team teaching, etc., students go back to school, and we go back to January, February of 2020. Okay, so here's my argument as a teacher. In September 1939, on the cusp of World War II, September 1945, the end of World War II, the world changed completely, from science to education to business to absolutely everything. You cannot go back to September 1939. Yet in our education system, we are straight back to February of 2020, and not much has changed. We had the perfect opportunity to change. So let's go back to the teacher facilitator. Your teacher in the current system is a teacher. Students come into the class. The classroom was designed for the 20th century model. Even my argument goes to education system was designed on the back of the Industrial Revolution 300-400 years ago. Okay, we needed workers, this massive process of urbanization, and we needed to educate these workers because we had these factories coming up in towns, etc., etc. So the education model kind of changed, and we almost have the same type of education. So when you talk to parents, you're going to say, grandmom, daughter, all three could have gone to the same school, same classroom, same furniture, hopefully not the same teacher, okay? And the education system hasn't changed. A smart board on the wall does not mean we are technologically advanced. So your teacher in that environment teaches. I stand in front of the class, I teach. I give the content. I'm the bearer of content. We know that our students today are the most digitally literate generation on this planet, Generation Z, okay? Or Z, as the Americans like to say. They are the most digitally literate generation on this earth, yet we are still teaching them with the same pedagogy, the same teaching methodology as we did in the 20th century. Your facilitator facilitates that environment, because if I say to my students, I want you guys to put together some information on the French Revolution, and specifically, and I give them the parameters, I guarantee you they will source the content, they will find the information. What do I do as the facilitator, as the teacher now? I facilitate the skills. How do they take that information? How do they interpret it? How do they argue it? What do they look at from a source point? How many sources have they researched? Those are the skills that we need to give our students. Because if I'm going to ask you, please tell me one thing that you remember from your education at school.
Rote
you might
learning.
have remembered some content.
Yeah.
But your final matric exam, statistics will show us that you learn for your matric exam, you write, you pass, 3 months later, you write the same exam without having learned how much retention has taken place. There's a massive percentage of what you've lost. So it has to be a skills driven, and it has to be facilitated by the traditional teacher, which now for us becomes a roving facilitator in our learning hubs.
Do you see us adding new subjects like logic and rhetoric back into the curriculum, which have seemed to be, so you spoke about how do we find, present, argue, what are our sources of content? I mean, do you think we're going to be changing our traditional subjects now?
There needs to be unfortunately, education is political. So, and it doesn't matter where you look, from the United Kingdom to the United States, to China, totalitarian states, I mean, you name it. Education is political. There needs to be a political will to change education for the right reasons. Okay?
Okay.
So when we have that level of thinking, we're able to do that. If you're in an environment or a society where your experts in education can have the role with the politics removed, I believe you can re-look at the curriculum completely and introduce subjects that are completely relevant for 2022 and beyond.
Okay. But we can't do that now. Even if we know that we want to do it, we can't do it because of the shackles of politics, ego, and empire building. Is it not because schools are basically babysitting so that we can be more productive as a society?
I think that label might apply to certain schools. There are schools that are doing incredible work out there and that are really pushing the boundaries. The problem with that is that it's not the entire school. It largely focuses on an individual. So you will have a teacher that just has this mindset that knows that the curriculum is so frustrating because it's antiquated. Why am I learning about this? What are the skills I'm trying to get out of this? And they will challenge that. But it doesn't filter through to the entire DNA of the school. That's what Centennial Schools is about.
Well, tell me about the Centennial elevator pitch. Why should I consider Centennial for my girls?
So one of the things in putting together Centennial Schools is exactly what I said earlier, my frustration of an education system and I've run some really big education kind of groups, and as a school, as a headmaster at one point in time. And one of the frustrations is that our students will matriculate. So at the end, in January of the next year, you're going to have private schools going ballistic, taking tens of thousands rands worth of adverts to tell you that their matric students got 4.2 distinctions or 3.5 distinctions, or we had 100% pass rate, etc., etc. So what? Because every single one of those kids is not qualified to do one single job. They cannot go into the job market. We haven't prepared them for anything. So yes, I'm going to matriculate with 7 or 8 distinctions, but what am I qualified to do? I'm not qualified to do anything. So what did we do at Centennial Schools? We needed to change the pedagogy. And it's interesting because people don't always understand the word pedagogy. So pedagogy,
I was going to ask you to define it because it's a big word for a Wednesday morning, Thursday morning.
So pedagogy is my teaching methodology, the methods I use to teach. Okay. So we want to do, so the idea was I needed to change the pedagogy. How? Well, first of all, you have to change the physical space. So the design of your campus needs to change. And you cannot design it in a 20th century concept, which is what most schools do. So guaranteed, the 3 private schools you drive past built and designed their campuses on a 20th century model. Classroom, teacher stays in classroom, 25 or 30 desks in a row, teacher in front of the class, teaching the students. Students after 30 or 45 minutes, bell goes, they move to the next class. Okay. They all wear very nice uniforms that are completely irrelevant because we inherited that from the British colonial system. And the logic of wearing a polyester blazer on a Highveld 32-degree summer afternoon makes 0 sense. And it's got nothing to do with discipline. Absolute rubbish. Because at 2:30 when school ends, most of those kids, ties off, blazer off, shirt untucked, and they're off. They don't, it's not natural. So unless you're in a military, why are we wearing uniforms? So one, we got rid of the uniform. It made no sense. We also got rid of it from the practicality and from a financial cost. So parents don't have to spend that kind of money. The counter to that is people will say, but so-and-so wears only top branded stuff and this one doesn't wear this, and that, or you know, your poorer kids. The reality is we're in private education. Our school, we are gearing for obviously your middle class, all right? And South Africa has its own unique challenges in terms of our kind of different LSMs in our country. And we have not, since we've opened in January this year, we have not had an issue where kids want to outdress the other students. We have a very clear dress code, what's acceptable, what's not, and students subscribe to that, they sign it as part of their code of conduct, and they buy into it. So the school runs on a very strong values-based system. In terms of changing the physical environment, we created a campus where I looked at organizations like Tesla, like SpaceX, like Google, campuses like Apple, Microsoft. What are they doing that makes them such successful 21st century organizations? What aspects make them successful? Because there are areas that are not, of course, in any organization. And took those and built it into the campus. So our Learning Hub replaces the classroom. Learning Hub is much bigger. It's dynamic. The furniture in it is mobile. So your chairs there, which we call our Mobi chairs, move into different configurations. So you have you have Mobi chairs. You then have tiered seating students can sit on. You have high standing desks. We know students who are standing, one, it's healthier. It's they tend to be more involved, more attentive. Or we have bean bags depending on the type of lesson. So your students are based in that specific learning hub. So 8C, for example, has their learning hub. They don't move. Your teachers move. The logic of, do I move 400 students every 30 or 40 minutes? Or do I move 30 teachers? Well, move 30 teachers, because by doing that, your teachers moving to the different learning hubs, you are saving up to 40 to 50 academic minutes per day. Okay, because we know that in schools where students move, when I'm going from English to maths, instead of 5 minutes, it'll take me 7 minutes to get to the next class. Each lesson is also different. So the students based in the learning hub, maths teacher wants a configuration which is lecture style, let's say, and the Moby chairs are set up like that. The next teacher comes in and suddenly it's in those Moby chairs are moved into a circle. So even though the students are based in the same venue, their venue changes physically every 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the type of lesson. So that's the physical space we changed. We built what we call creative hubs. Students book those creative hubs. Those are really funky kind of student style boardrooms. All our students work off laptops. So we partner with ASUS, we spec really good laptops, good, better, best. Those laptops will see the students through to university if they choose to go to university. So it's a good investment for the parents. We're a Microsoft school. So our students use the Microsoft tools as part of their learning process. So you have a 13-year-old going on, booking the boardroom or the creative hub because him and his friends have got a problem-based task that they need to work through, and we've provided a facility for them to do that. It's not a case of, okay, guys, this group go outside, that group do this. We've also built collaboration hubs between the learning hubs. So students can pop into those collab hubs, have a collaborative discussion, put a presentation together. The physical environment complements the change in pedagogy, if that makes sense.
100%. I don't agree with you on everything, and we're going to. That's good.
Sure.
That's why we're here. But the concept of an elevator pitch, I'm going to ask you again, is if you've got time between me and the 5th floor to say why my girls should go to your school, what's that shortened? Why should we not go traditional? Why should we come to Centennial?
Because Centennial Schools is relevant for 2022 and beyond.
Awesome. And your teachers that are coming in, I mean, you haven't had the time to breed these teachers. They've come through the same, I want to use it, pedagogy.
Yes.
Yes, pedagogy. They've had the same pedagogy as we have. What are you doing with these teachers now to bring them up to speed in this new role of facilitation? I know one is probably our naming conventions for these facilitators. What else? How are you bringing them up to speed?
So every single teacher was handpicked. There are teachers out there that are so ready for this new style of teaching. And so I've been in the business for 30
You must be the
years.
most loved dude amongst principals in the West Rand. It's like Christmas card. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought it was crazy kind of starting it. It's like you have an app that calls it a taxi, and when you want it and you see exactly how much it's going to cost and it'll show you a route, people say that's ridiculous. We would just keep a normal taxi, and then suddenly you have an app called Uber. Yeah. You know, it's the challenge when you disrupt something is it's the early adopters that are critical to the success of the organization. Okay. So with the teachers, there are many teachers out there that are ready for this. In my entire career as a head of school, as a managing director of 2 very large successful teaching groups in private education, I've never received so many CVs as I have in the year that we announced the opening of Centennial Schools. So and that's been absolutely incredible. We do spend a lot of time with our teachers where we do a lot of work in terms of sharing ideas, sharing best practice, what's working, what's not working, what do we have to adjust, and that's ongoing. That development is always ongoing, and it will always be ongoing. You know, my opening line at the beginning of this year to the staff was, if you're going to teach the same way you were teaching at your previous school, this is not the right school for you, because you can't do that. You cannot think traditional education.
Shaun, where are you from a global scale? Who do you compete against, or who's the benchmark? Who are you trying to model against to do that learning? Or without sounding completely arrogant, are you breaking new ground globally? Where would you see Centennial?
I think there's nothing that's been based. Often parents come and say, okay, is this part of an international group or whatever? It's not. It's Joburg, born and bred. That's been, that's my hometown. I've lived here my entire life and been in South African education for all of that. So it's been kind of bred out of an educationist sort of thinking from grassroots through to management. And I've taken what I believe is, again, the most relevant for 2022. So yes, there are certain schools that have got elements of what we're doing. There are things that we've done that I think are completely new. The building of that esports arena, I don't know yet. I know on the African continent, we don't have anyone that has that, but I haven't yet globally seen a school that has the same facility that we have. And I based that model on the American universities because it's American colleges that had the funding to be able to do that. So that for me, I don't know yet. So I don't want to say globally that's what we have. And that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is create an authentic and relevant education for our kids that when they finish school, they are prepared for certain other things. And in terms of the model, so
you're going to have visitors coming to see you. You're going to have visitors now from Dubai coming because they want to get ahead in this game and start attracting to people who would want to go to school in Dubai if you could live in UK or whatever. So that's very, very exciting. I do have a question about the esports. I know it's growing momentously around the world. I mean, the prizes they're giving away for esports challenges are huge. You've got to be in there. But surely in an era where our kids are spending more and more on time online, connected, more and more time behind devices, shouldn't we be encouraging our learners to be on stage, playing an instrument, not connected, being outside, being in nature?
Yes and no. You
can't say that. That's dreadful, man. That's
so the yes. So the yes part comes probably from our own upbringing as adults. Okay, so that's the yes part. The no part is the generation that we have at the moment. So we do all that. And how do we incorporate that? We take technology and we use that to accelerate exactly what you're saying. Yet we balance it with a very clear wellness program. So for example, in our campus, we built an incredible fitness facility. Our students do, in the curriculum, we built in things. We have a yoga and a Pilates studio. So our students once a week in their curriculum timetable, they go for yoga. They focus on breathing, focus on the concentration, just calming down. They then do 3 sessions a week of fitness. We have qualified CrossFit instructors that come in. They do boxing. They do personal fitness. And what's interesting is we balance it. So the reality is, why did we go that route and not the traditional route? If you, as you say, you did your homework, I became a teacher because I coached rugby and I loved water polo. And water polo was my entire existence for many years as a teacher, and I coached it right through to national level. So I understand the value of sport, but the reality is, and the same question I'd ask you, when you left school, how many of your friends and yourself continued with team sport for fitness? Probably very few, if any. Yet how many do you know today still go to gym, do Pilates, do yoga, etc.? So what we're doing is we're building into the DNA of the student the appreciation that wellness is a critical aspect beyond school. So our students will know, they will be so comfortable going into any fitness facility because we have taught them professionally from the beginning, this is what you do, this is how you warm up, this is how you pack your weights away, this is how you use the equipment, and they start seeing the success. Our students are encouraged to join club sports. So, for example, you can take a group of our boys have all joined one particular football club. They still competing. They're still playing matches. They're still being coached. We have students who've water polo clubs, swimming clubs, hockey down the road at Morningside Astro. So the students are still involved in it. But guess what? Their core strength and fitness is incredible because we have a proper facility where they are trained. The flip
So we're
side
going kind of Europe on the sporting side, where that's common in Europe. That's common in the UK.
So in South Africa,
you go to school for school. Totally unheard of.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if I agree with you, but I understand the logic behind it. I understand what you're building from a school perspective. That's exciting. When you're asked another private school, what's your answer to public sector education? Where does it go? Because I know you've got more depth to you than a pavement puddle. You wouldn't be in education if you were all in it for the money. What do we do about public sector? Or is your mandate private sector, middle class, make it strong? We don't look left or right.
One of the tragedies of our current society in South Africa is that your state-run organizations are disastrous. Okay, so from medical to electricity to the list will go on and on and on. First time I was in London now in the last month, first time I've ever been to Heathrow where I never saw the South African Airways plane. So
it's tragic, huh?
So it is tragic. So what is successful in South Africa? Well, your health services are incredibly successful. Why? Because they're private. Your education, private education generally is very successful, regardless of the 20th century kind of continuous teaching.
I can see that that was tough for you to say there, Shaun. That was hard.
I was trying to be polite because there are good things. I'm not putting down what other schools are doing, but if you know they have their own difficulty in changing. But to get back to the question, so within the private sector is where we will succeed in South Africa. Even if you look at telecommunications, Telkom's a disaster. But your private telecommunications industries, absolutely functional, running, no issue, accountable, absolutely superb. So for me, how are we going to do this? We can educate one student at a time to make a difference, or I can go a big bang approach, which is not going to be successful. What's very important for me is, and I say this unashamedly, I did not start Centennial Schools to make money. Centennial Schools was started because there needed to be a difference in education. Yes, we're private because we fund ourselves 100%. What was critical was I wanted to ensure we were offering a premier level service and education. So we compete with the best of the best in terms of education, but at almost half the fee, and it can be done. So if you do an analysis on your top schools, take in Johannesburg, for example, and look at their fee, the majority are sitting in a high school education of 13 to 17,000 Rand per month, per child. Now, on a sporting bay, what is most of that going to? Is going to facilities, okay? Now, I did a survey a number of times through my career on how many kids are actively using your facilities. Less than 40% of your students use your facilities in the high school environment. Primary school is different. Primary school, they're all involved. They want to do athletics. As they grow and as they get into more senior years, less and less. So now you're building a 35 million Rand aquatic center. You've got a school of 1,600 kids. Guaranteed less than 200 will use that facility. But who's paying for it? All the other parents. So our logic was, as on the sporting ground, join the clubs. As a parent right now, as South Africans, our middle-class South Africans are hemorrhaging at the moment. And the majority of their money is going to education, bond, and car payments. That's where the money is going to. So for me, we looked at how do we offer a model that is incredibly competitive. Our school fee sits at 7,850 Rand. And that's the fee. So it includes everything I've spoken about: the fitness, the esports, all the facilities on campus. All of that is included. So to go back to the original question in terms of kind of what do we do? Is this just a once-off thing? I think Centennial schools will be able to offer this level of authentic and relevant education to more people because families can afford this. A good government school is about 5,000 Rand a month in Johannesburg, in the northern suburbs. For 2,800 Rand more, your child's going to come to a private school that is really tackling the issues and preparing our kids for 2022 and beyond.
Well, there's a lot to think about there, Shaun. That's a lot. I'm going to deviate and go where no man has gone in a while. How would your leadership style be described by someone who left your employ?
I think I think servant leadership would be, I would hope, would be the description. Yeah, I think I would probably put it into that.
That's nice to aspire to, I think. Shaun, you are at the forefront of a very dynamically changing environment. How do you stay current? Are you a podcast person? Are you a reader? Are you a TV person? And what can you recommend that we can read?
So I think podcasting, interesting. I mean, I've been on a few, and my challenge, I suppose, I sound like a politician, but my challenge is that I don't make the time, because when I should be listening to podcasts, which is ideally in traffic and driving, I kind of just zone out and listen to jazz and just calm down and get through Joburg traffic. So I have listened to a few podcasts there, but nothing.
So how do you stay ahead of the game?
I do a lot of reading, and reading not so much in terms of books, but reading in terms of just researching topics, seeing what's current, what's relevant, different organizations. I mean, there's so much out there. There's not something specific that I would, that I would recommend.
What's the topic you're going down at the moment? What's the rabbit hole that you're chasing at the moment?
I think at the moment, for me, it's looking at sort of the gamification of teaching. So how do we gamify as part of that kind of offering? And that's what I'm sort of looking at the moment. How do we, your earlier question, how do we continue to stay relevant? I think the easy part was our kind of catchphrase on Centennial Schools is, we kind of reimagining today's schools. Yeah. And so in 20 years' time, I still expect the current leadership, or the leadership at that time of Centennial Schools, to continue to reimagine today's schools, because our schools in 2042 are going to be very different to 2022. Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any thought leader today, who would it be, and where would you treat them?
Probably Donald Trump.
Shaun, on my pod, what the hell? Come on. Okay, you got to unpack that.
Because how can you would want to understand, for me, I would want to understand how someone like that can actively believe that he's a useful human being.
I'm so glad you went there. I was about to say, come on. Wow. And where would you take them, in Joburg? Where's your go-to for a special restaurant, for a special dinner?
I love the 44 on Stanley. I love the kind of rejuvenation of the city. I grew up in the 80s. Yeah. My dad had health studios in town. I used to catch the number 32 bus from Jeppy Boys into town. So I have very nostalgic memories of Johannesburg, and I certainly, 44 Stanley for me is quite it's just, I think what the guys have done there is fantastic.
If ever you get the chance, you probably have, but Johannesburg After Dark, the storytelling evening in the vault of the original bank, we did it it was amazing. If you got guests, treat yourself to that. That's in the middle of town, and just a lovely, and the storyteller is just talking around our culture in the city, at how it's changing every 25 years and how we shouldn't be afraid of change, which is something that you're instituting. It's big change.
Yeah.
And it's almost the question I'd like to bring it to a wrap, which is, what one piece of advice would you give to parents today with regards to prepping their kids for the world? If they never come to Centennial School, what would you say to parents who are going through this? You know, we got grade 3, grade 5, grade 10, grade 11.
Yeah. You know, we say don't medicate by Google, because you will probably have died of every disease under the sun. I would almost kind of say try not to, because a lot of parents do a lot of research, but you know your child better than anyone in most cases, until they become teenagers, by the way. I'm not sure. I think I'm guessing your kids are primary school still.
Yeah, I've got one in grade 11.
Okay, all right. So
yeah,
you
I'm
understand.
through
Okay,
it.
once they become teenagers, different story. But I really think that in terms of education for parents, be cautious not to try and relive your own kind of what I did, what I was successful, what I wasn't successful at, through your children. And it sounds cliched, but it happens every single day. And just because it was right for granddad and dad to have gone to a particular school does not mean that Johnny is going to be the same kind of kid in that environment. You know, find a school that really resonates with your child. And I'm finding now that often the students, parents are seriously looking at the students buying into their education and consulting them and asking them, are you happy? We've seen 3 or 4 different schools. What do you like about this? Why? That is the right way to do it.
That resonates with me very much. And to all of our audience, the best way to get the best out of your kid is through dialogue. Just like employees, I know they don't bring any revenue into the business, but man, they make a difference. And a happy child is priceless. Where do people find more about Centennial? When are you going to Cape Town, Durban? Is there plans for that? What are the expansion plans? Do you have open days?
Yeah, so we actually have an open day on the 3rd of September. Although I don't, that's kind of following a very traditional model where schools open. Our school is open anytime to parents to book an appointment at, find a time that's convenient, bring the student with, bring dad with, grandma, doesn't matter who, the important role players in their child's kind of life, come to the school. We do a full tour. We go through everything, we explain it, we physically show it. We encourage students to come and spend a day on campus to try before you buy, almost just to see if really this resonates with them. We've not had a student that has not absolutely loved it and wanted to start immediately when they've done that. So yeah, and then obviously our Centennial Schools website, centennialschools.co.za. Easy to find us in Google now, so we've got a really strong digital campaign going, happening at the moment.
Awesome.
Our expansion plans, I would love to have this as in as many cities as possible. Again, we fund ourselves, so it's not always easy. Our plan is to open in the Western Cape in 2024. There are 2 specific areas we're looking at the moment. So once we finalize that, we'll make that public. We do plan on Pretoria East. We're looking at Joburg West. We're looking at KZN once I think things settle down there. So we are looking, and then of course the new nodes are developing in South Africa. There, as I'm sure you know, there are coastal cities that are suddenly booming because there's a massive influx of people. So that goes to we're now in September 1945. Things have changed and things are happening. So we're looking at those areas as well to bring in some really exciting education.
On Bombela as well, just cities that are going. For someone who education is a big thing for me, because I went to about 7 schools, so I know a lot of schools.
Wow.
I just wish you all the best, because we need to change it, and we need it to go. And children, you said it with such wisdom. if they find their happy place and they've bought into it, they can only do well. And whether that's a traditional school, for some kids just like that, or it's a new modern school of what you're talking around, I'm so glad there's a space for them. Shaun, I'm really humbled that you gave us some time just to chat about your vision. I'm really excited for it. And I wish you everything of the best as you take this first year and you take these brave new parents through the education, and you take these brave new learners through this new learning, and you take these brave new teachers. We wish you every bit of success, and we will be sharing your website details on the podcast. From me, Daniel Robus, I just want to thank you for a very interesting 40-minute chat.
Thank you. Appreciate it.